Welcome to Dynasty Playbook, where we take all the preseason hype and we throw it in the garbage. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Twitter at DrewDotsonNFL. With me is my awesome co-host, Tyler. You can find him on Twitter at HBOMIDP. And we're coming to you a little bit early this week, kind of making it up to you for not having one last week. But we're hoping to come out with you with 2 episodes this weekend. So keep an eye out. Tyler, how you doing tonight, bud?
Doing good. You threw me a curveball with the lead in there. I like it. We're gonna put out this preseason fire because we are grumpy bastards, and I'm so sick of it. Not necessarily just the preseason hype. I'm so tired of this offseason. I can't take anymore.
Yeah, I need real football like yesterday. I'm so tired of preseason. So tired of people flip flopping on their opinions based on one catch or one injury, one opinion piece. It's too much. It's just. And let's start off with the one that's kind of getting to me the most is Kevin White, who it seems like people have been souring on him all off season, and I don't get it. He was a top 10 NFL pick, and I'm not going to get as heated as I did talking about Sammy Watkins. This is going to be one of those. I can't start off like that, but he was a top 10 NFL pick. He's got the profile to be a stellar NFL wide receiver, and people are fading him, and I don't get it. He's injured for his rookie season. Yeah, it sucks. You're not going to be able to see him produce and see how he adapts to the NFL, but you weren't expecting to get fantasy production out of him. You shouldn't have been expecting him to really contribute to your fantasy team. So why does it really matter?
Yeah, it's just weird. We were talking about this before we went on, and it seemed like, we got to talking about him, like, especially since the injury, he's just taking a dump. The guys just aren't taking him anywhere near as high as they were, and I guess that's cool. I can see the reasoning behind that, but it almost seemed like there was some grumbling before that. But I can't really trace it back to any time prior to camp's opening. I'm not, I don't know. Maybe I'm just imagining some of this. But he's a little bit older, okay? So what is he, 23? I think we finally got a confirmed age on him. He's 23, so he'll be 24 this time next year, which is, a little bit older than you want to see your rookie wideouts. But this notion that he's going to be a rookie in 2016, there's a big difference between a guy that just got drafted in May and boom, they're playing in September, than a guy who is going to have a complete calendar year and change in the system before he's actually taken snaps in 2016. That's if he is even out completely for 2015, which is, to my knowledge, he hasn't been ruled out entirely. So still based on film evaluation, he's the number 2 wideout in this class for me. And if I'm sitting at 103 and Gurley and Coop are gone and I can't trade down, and try to pick up some extra value, pick up White a few picks later, I'm taking White at 103, still just the same as I was 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago.
Yeah, it hasn't changed for me either. Granted, he's a little closer to Aguilar than he is to Cooper for me now, but he's still in that top tier. This guy's going to end up being a stellar NFL wide receiver. There's no way to guarantee it, but the odds are pretty good. And we'll talk about an NFL receiver I'm not as high on. And granted, he was a first-round NFL wide receiver too. But I also had issues with this tape coming out as a rookie, and that's Kelvin Benjamin, who there's a lot of conflicting reports. Some people are saying it's a torn ACL. I've also read it's just a sprained PCL. So, yeah, I just read that. So, chances are he's going to be out for the season, though, which is bad news for Cam. Cam has not been as efficient when Kelvin's off the field. But it's really good news for Devin Funchess, but it's also really bad news for Kelvin Benjamin owners. Benjamin will be 25 and a half by the time he takes his next snap as an NFL starter. That's pretty rough for being essentially a second-year player.
Yeah, it's a brutal blow. And there are a lot of guys that have invested heavily in Kelvin Benjamin, and I would expect he'd put up similar stat line to what he did last year, which was pretty damn good. It's touchdown dependent and somewhat garbage time dependent, but he still put up the numbers. So I think the biggest boost is Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen is going to feed. I wouldn't be surprised to see him, up there with Gronk and Graham, everybody's new lover, Travis Kelce. Wouldn't be surprised to see Olsen ride in the mix with those guys and with a really, really good chance of outpacing all other tight ends and targets by quite a bit because there's just nobody else to throw to. It's Olsen, it's Funchess, Philly Brown, Brenton
maybe
Burson.
Boykin.
Boykin was down there. We thought that might be a thing, but he's awful. Kochery. It's really bad down there. So, but as far as Calvin's dynasty value, now's not the time to sell him. I'm sure there are thousands and thousands of lowball offers getting kicked around out there. So you pretty much just got to put your feet in the dirt and you're not selling him right now because you're going to undersell him. Yeah. It's a bummer. It's a bummer. No other way to put it. It's just a bummer.
You have to hold on to him until he's healthy again, because he's gonna go back to his ways. He's gonna be putting up touchdowns again because it's what he does, and he's gonna raise up in value, at least to some extent. You're gonna have a better chance to sell him, but this is gonna be really good for Funch. Just not necessarily in that he's gonna be a huge fantasy producer, but he's gonna see enough snaps to probably gain a decent amount of value in terms of trade market, which I was very iffy on before because I thought if he didn't play a ton, if he showed poorly in the small amount that he did play, then it could be a huge detriment to him if he didn't show that he was capable. He was, there's the rare instances where rookies don't actually gain value, and I thought that could be one of those instances.
That makes perfect sense, especially a guy that very few people loved him. A lot of people disliked him, but even more were right on the fence, just looking for a reason to either not like him or vault him. And so a limited showing with bad results could have definitely put him in the toilet. I don't even know what to think about him for this year. I suspect we're going to kind of see similar to what Kelvin did last year. He's going to have some big weeks, he's going to catch a couple touchdowns, and he's going to have some turds. It's just, at this point, there's nobody else there, man. There's nobody else there. And this kid, you don't teach 6'5", 230 or whatever he is. He's young as all hell. I think he's 21 years old right now. Super young. Very big. Not the best hands in the world. He doesn't sink his hips. He's not the fastest guy, but he almost kind of mirrors his counterpart there in Kelvin in that he can post numbers. I really think he can, but I have no idea what to expect.
Yeah, if he were to repeat touchdown numbers, that seems reasonable to me. The thing I find kind of not really unbelievable, but I have a hard time believing it, is that he's going to repeat the yardage. Getting 1,000 yards as a rookie is kind of a feat. It's not something that's done very often. And the 2014 class has kind of spoiled us because we had 3 wide receivers that did it. But I'd be shocked if Devin Funchess hit 1,000 yards receiving. I think Cam is going to rely a lot on Greg Olsen, like you said. And I think we're going to see a lot of receiving yards out of the running backs because there's no way Funchess sees enough receptions to get the yardage to hit 1,000 yards. It's just, I don't believe it.
Yeah. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't put any money on it, but I wouldn't be all that surprised either just because somebody's got to do it, man. I mean, what's a reasonable expectation for passing yards in Carolina? What do you think the floor? 2,700? 3,000? It's got to go somewhere. Jay Stu is he'll break in a million pieces. It's just going to happen. So
yeah, I'm not terribly worried about whether it's Jay Stu or Cameron Artis-Payne because Artis-Payne is not a bad pass catcher in his own right. So as long as one of them's there, somebody will be there to catch the ball. And even Mike Tolbert's not the worst at it, as long as somebody's there to catch some passes. Granted, I'm not relying on Mike Tolbert for much more than short yardage work. If I'm throwing a bowling ball, I want him to wreck some people, not try and dodge people on a friggin' wheel route.
Mike Tolbert. Mike Tolbert's that guy where you're just like, God damn it, Mike Tolbert. And what, Darrell Young, the guy in Washington, he's that guy. Matt Asiato, where you're just like, Jesus H, why are they giving him the touchdown?
Yep, pretty much everybody's favorite guy. Or anybody in Atlanta last year stealing from everybody else. Have fun guessing what was happening there. But
Antone Smith's ripping off 70-yarders every time you turn around.
Yeah, I think somebody did the math that if you took away his like 3 or 4 big runs, he averaged like 2.7 yards a carry.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. But in terms of what I predict out of the Carolina passing game for a floor, I was thinking like 25, so 27 is probably about right. In terms of ceiling, unless they bring in some kind of free agent that I'm not expecting or make a trade, I'm thinking like 35, maybe. 32, 35. That's probably capping it out.
That's pretty anemic.
I see Cam's rushing increasing a decent bit, especially in terms of in the red zone.
Yeah. Everybody, this is just being written off as a death knell for Cam, but that's still Cam Newton, guys. I mean, that's still the one-man gang. He got it done for a long time. Yeah, he had Steve Smith there, but Drew's making a face. I said Steve Smith. But he had Steve Smith. But he's never been, inundated with weapons. That's Cam Newton right there. I'm not surprised at all when Cam Newton's right back where he should be as a Dino QB3 a year from now.
Yeah, that face was actually not me hating on Steve Smith at all. That face was me thinking about that 2013 offense. There wasn't a red zone threat in the bunch unless you count Greg Olsen. They had Ted Ginn Jr. and Cotchery and just all sorts of just nastiness. And somehow Cam was still the QB. He was a top 5 QB. So throw in some Funchess, give him Olsen again. I figure he'll probably be all right. So I'm not worried about it.
It's Cam. He's going to run for 8 or 10 touchdowns, and that's going to make up the difference for you. And he's going to be super, super cheap, especially if we want to talking redraft style. I got my home league coming up, so I'm trying to think a little bit of redraft here. I know that gets under Drew's skin, but it's a 2 QB league, and I'm like, man, I might be able to pull Cam off pretty deep in that league. We'll see.
Yeah, I feel like last year was the only year Cam has not been a top 5 quarterback, and he was going into the season coming off an injury and still managed to, on a per game basis, do pretty damn well. So I'm not worried about him.
And he KO'd his damn car. You know what I mean? When you saw those initial reports come out, you're like, oh shit, that's not good. Like, Cam dead now. But then he comes back and plays the next week. I mean, the dude's a superstar. So I think we have just grilled that one into the dirt. Next preseason guy. Oh, we're talking about hurt guys. We're talking about Kevin White. How about Mike Iupati, the O lineman in Arizona, which was already kind of a mess anyway. Now it's really messy because that dude is a hoss.
Yeah, Iupati pretty much was one of the sole guys carrying that run game in San Francisco for a long time. And he would have brought a decent bit of life to that Arizona O-line that's needed life since, Kurt Warner was there? It's been hot garbage for almost a decade. But now they just kind of have to hope that Cooper is going to be able to do something enough to be able to produce. Or they can just put in David Johnson, who nobody's been able to tackle, and hopefully that'll be enough.
Yeah, but David Johnson he's a wiener, right? That's what you keep hearing. He's a wiener. I don't care how David Johnson runs in between the tackles. That's not his game. They're going to find ways to get him the ball. They're going to split him out. They're going to run him on wheels. David Johnson's going to get his. Ellington, we're just not Ellington guys. Never really have been. I like Ellington at a point. There's a certain point where I like Ellington, but not anywhere near where he's valued. And then the Ellington hype train is starting up again. Red Jesus, they come out and say we're going to get him 20 touches a game. And I just feel like I might have heard that before. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear I heard this Ellington's going to get 20 touches a game rhetoric exactly 1 year ago. And that didn't work.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure his efficiency was garbage last year. And the only reason he was fantasy relevant was because of the volume. So give him 20 touches a game. That's fine. And then we'll show you what a fantasy running back looks like when he's efficient on a per-snap basis.
It's the David Johnson show. That's what it's going to be. But that would be a nice little split. If they split time, I think they could be an effective pairing. I don't know what it would do for fantasy. And PPR fantasy, obviously, it's going to be good. But, yeah, we've been Team David Johnson for a long time right now.
Yeah. And with that, we'll move on to our next injured player who has been injured for all of 15 minutes. And that's Robert Griffin III, who apparently got sacked roughly 1.5 million times in his game tonight. And it looks like it's going to be a pretty rough season for him. So,
yeah, it's RG3, man. I saw a stat. He had 8 dropbacks and like 6 hurries, hit 4 times, and had a pass batted down. So, yeah, good job, RG3. I did see he passed the initial concussion test, but that's not going to be the first time he's going in for concussion protocol. RG3 might be effectively dead for fantasy purposes, and that's really a bummer for me. I'm not a big Baylor fan, but I'm an RG3 fan. He's a good kid. Killed it as a rookie. He was a Konami code as a rookie. It was great. But it's bad, man. It's time to get your Colt McCoy shares dusted off and get ready.
Yeah, Shanahan absolutely ruined that kid, and I feel for him, but he's also had kind of a turd attitude, so he hasn't done himself any favors either, but it's not looking good for his future. He kind of needed to come out of the gate blazing if he was gonna turn around, but it seems like it's just more of the same thing we've been seeing.
Yeah, you get your hopes up, and you're like, all right, here we go. We got this. And it's just not there. It's just not there. And it just goes to show you how volatile player value is in Dynasty. 2 years ago, even 1 year ago, if you told me Robert Griffin III wasn't even going to be a top 24 Dynasty quarterback, I'd have told you were on crack. Like, there's no way that's happening, but that's who he is now. He's lower than Alex Smith. It's that bad because the risk is palpable. I mean, it is so risky. And if you want to carry RG3, especially in 2 QB, you're going to be carrying Kirk Cousins and Colt McCoy too, and you're going to be burning roster spots on mediocre quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's not fun, and it's not like that Washington offense is just this haven of offensive production. So even if you're holding them, you're holding it because that's a quarterback spot, not because it's just giving you all this fantasy production. You're doing it because you have to, not because it's going to win you games.
Yeah, just plug in that hole, and that's what you run into in 2 QB. You got to have one in there, and even in Superflex, you're almost always better off playing the quarterback instead of whoever your 7th or 8th flex or whatever would be. And that's what RG3 has become. He's effectively a 2-quarterback league placeholder, which is such a bummer.
Pretty much. It's pretty rough. And with that, we'll move on to our next guy, which is CJ Spiller, who I know I'm not alone in that I had extremely high hopes for CJ Spiller this year, but it seems like he's already injured. It looks like Mark Ingram is going to be taking up a lot of his passing work in the offense. And I don't know if we have a timeline for when he's going to be playing again, but if this is any indication, it's probably, even if he does play again, it might not be for long.
CJ Spiller. You just can't trust CJ Spiller. Heard a lot of reports said he'll be back week 1. I don't know. Whatever. I kind of doubt it. But if he does get back, he's so likely to get re-injured. Just incredibly likely to get re-injured. So I'm all about Mark Ingram right now. And Dynasty, redraft, short-term, long-term. He's still really young. And Mark Ingram looked damn good last year. Just got to stay healthy. But Kyrie Robinson's gotten a nice little boost right now, too. He's been all but forgotten about. And for good reason. But he's got a nice little boost, too, because he's effectively the backup behind a somewhat injury-prone running back in Mark Ingram. So, yeah, Spiller's injured. Shocker.
Yeah.
We picked off all the hurt guys, didn't we?
I think that's all of them. And speaking of Kyrie Robinson, though, he looked really good in his first preseason game. Like, he didn't break off a ton of runs. He didn't get that many chances. But when he did, he looked really solid. He kind of showed what everybody saw from him in 2013, especially in the playoffs. He showed that he's a really dynamic runner. And there's also talk that he might be using the passing game some, which I don't care how they use him as long as they're getting him on the field somewhere, because this guy is really, really good. And we'll just add him to the list of Saints players who I think look really, really good, and I'm not biased at all.
You can be biased the other way, too. If a guy looks like crap, you're not afraid to say a guy looks like crap. Yeah,
speaking of, Brandon Coleman got bumped up to the number 3 wide receiver spot. And I know 14-team Monker tried to give me credit. You know, I was not on the Coleman train. I was a Nick Toon guy. Apparently, Nick Toon is in danger of not even making the 53-man roster. So for everybody that took my Nick Toon advice, my bad. I was right there with you making the mistakes too. But I don't think Coleman's that good. I watched him in the preseason game. He's got the same problems he's always had. I watched a pass bounce right off his hands. He wasn't covered all that well. He's still got the same issues. So it's not like Coleman's that great of a receiver. It's not like he's going to produce anything special, even if he's on the field.
It's just a byproduct of the offseason. We got nothing else to do. So we're very concerned with who's the number 3 receiver on the depth chart here and who's the third down back over here. But 2 weeks into the season, we're probably not going to give a shit who the third receiver on the depth chart is for the New Orleans Saints. When has that position ever been fantasy relevant consistently? Kenny Stills kind of did it after Cooks got hurt.
But so even then, he was the number 2 wide receiver on the Saints at that point.
Yeah. So this is just what we do in the offseason. We're bored as all hell, and we're trying to just inundate ourselves with as much football as we possibly can. Everybody's trying to find the sleeper, but the odds of a guy like that, who are some of the other guys getting kicked around? Eddie Royal,
Leonard Hankerson.
Leonard Hankerson. I didn't want to go there, but we have to go there with Leonard Hankerson because we're just digging. We're digging for something that's probably not there. All right, so in Dynasty, we're going to have a little bit longer-term projection here. But eventually, once that season hits, you're going to have to make cuts. And you're going to have to make ad drops. And you're going to have to start shifting your roster around. And guys like that are going to work their way to the bottom of your roster if they're not there already. And that's just kind of the way it goes. So definitely keep your eye on them. But they were bottom of the roster. Nick Toon was a bottom of the roster guy to begin with. And I raised my hand when Drew said, sorry about the Nick Toon thing, because I got Nick Toon stashed freaking everywhere. But guess what? I didn't pay shit for him, and I'm not going to shed any tears when I cut him. And I'll move on to the next bum that sits on the back end of my roster with Marlon Brown. And maybe something happens and maybe it doesn't.
Speaking of bums that are number 3 wide receivers on their team, Quentin Patton looks like he's beating out Bruce Ellington for the number 3 job on the 49ers.
Well, Brady just got a little boner somewhere. Brady's all on. Brady, I'm serious. My little brother Brady has Quentin Patton on every Dino roster he has. And it's a similar kind of deal. Like, I'm just going to have this guy on my team. Why not? It could happen.
I liked Quentin Patton. I liked him a lot when he was in Louisiana Tech, and he was. I thought it was pretty depressing that he didn't really evolve as he hit the NFL. So to me, him making the number 3 spot doesn't mean anything. I think the fact that he didn't develop when he did is kind of
it's kind of telling, especially on a roster that not exactly the most talented at wide receiver the last few years. But Patton's, this is his 3rd year, right? Or his 4th? I think it's his 3rd year.
I think it's his 3rd year, yeah.
So it could happen. I mean, you hear the 3rd year breakout at wide receiver. I mean, I can't think of any specific instances off the top of my head, but we're talking about stashes. He didn't break shit, dude. He had a few nice
really
games.
Good before he got injured.
Yeah, I mean, he had a few nice games. Even number extrapolation puts him under 1,000 yards.
That was the 2nd-year breakout, though, wasn't it? He was a 2012 draft pick, wasn't he?
No.
Yeah, I think it was a 2nd-round 2012 pick.
Brian Quick was a guy I traded a lot last year. Right when he was starting to do his thing. I didn't even get anything for him then. He's so unsexy.
I hope Stedman Bailey never catches another NFL pass, you hater.
Stedman Bailey is going to lead the Rams in receptions and yards, and I still don't think it's going to amount to a whole lot, but he's the best receiver on that roster.
Don't anybody listen to Tyler. He's the little hater girl. He needs to go to the jelly school.
Super jelly.
But you brought up sleepers earlier, and I got a solid sleeper for a 2 QB league. And I swear this is the last Saint I'm going to bring up tonight. And that's Garrett Grayson. He was PFF's number 1 rated quarterback from the first week of preseason games. And you wouldn't have had to tell me that. I didn't have to look it up, and I would have been able to guess it. He looked really good. And I don't care that he was playing against 3rd, 4th stringers. That's not what I noticed. I noticed him getting swallowed up by 3 pass rushers. They had all made it past the offensive line, and he's still standing tall in the pocket, delivering a bullet, doesn't flinch. Pass goes right to its intended target. He looks more composed, makes solid reads like he's a veteran quarterback already. He looked better than Luke McCown, and McCown's been playing for a decade. This guy is legit. And for your 2 quarterback leagues, I've already got a 2nd-round grade on him before this game, and it just cements where I had him in terms of my pick grades as it was. If you've got 32 roster spots, make room for him and make sure you stash him. I don't care if you have to drop some wide receiver that you weren't wanting to drop. You need to hold on to him because he's going to turn into something useful.
And that's what I've always said about guys like Grayson, quarterbacks, especially Brock Osweiler. They are tough holds. It's tough to hold these guys, even in deep-ish rosters. Now, some of these super, super deep roster leagues, it's no big deal holding on to these guys. But if you're in a super flex with 25-man rosters, it's going to be very, very difficult to hold Garrett Grayson. But I'm sticking with Drew here and saying you just got to do it. You got to find a way to make that happen. One of the teams that Drew and I co-own is a 2 QB. It's 2 QB, not a super flex. And it's quite shallow rosters. I think it's 27-man rosters, not very big. But we're holding, and we'll drop somebody. We're just going to have to drop somebody else because Drew Brees isn't going to be around forever. What is Brees? Is he 36?
36, yeah.
All right, so let's give him 2 more years.
You're younger than Brady, 2 years younger than Peyton.
Yeah, let's give Drew Brees 2 more years, maybe 3.
Yeah.
And then we can pop this kid in here who has a high draft pedigree and the scouts loved Garrett Grayson. The guys that I trust, Matt Miller, the Savages guys, they liked Garrett Grayson. That's good enough for me. The Saints liked him. He's in a system that has been unbelievably productive for quarterbacks. And I don't see any reason Peyton's going to be leaving anytime soon. They love him. So nice little QB stash at a really, really nice price. But in a one QB league, whatever. Unless you're crazy deep rosters, just move on.
And the nice thing is, by the time Grayson comes around, he's going to be able to play with an established veteran wide receiver in Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks did a thing the other night. He caught a pass.
And now everybody's losing their minds.
I say he caught a pass. He caught this little – it was like a little screenish type thing coming down the line of scrimmage. Juked a few guys and out. Brandon Cooks is explosive. That is a lot of power in that little frame.
He is so hot right now.
Yeah, everybody loved Brandon Cooks. Hating Brandon Cooks is kind of cool for some people. And I've never hated him nor just been in love with him. But Drew, I trust a lot on wide receiver evals. Chad Parsons, I trust a lot on wide receiver evals. They're all over Brandon Cooks, so I'm all over him too.
Yeah, I might have gone overboard originally because I took him at the 102 in one of my 2014 rookie drafts. I took him over Mike Evans, which in retrospect was a little bit crazy, but I loved everything about this guy's tape. I mean, to me, him going to New Orleans was just icing on the cake, but I mean, you don't become the Blitnikoff winner coming out of Oregon State for being pretty good. You got to be pretty stellar. And he was all of that and more, especially when you're, as short as he is, as small as he is, you earn that. And I'm ready for him to just light it up as a fantasy player and as a Saints fan. I'm ready. My body's ready.
Yeah, he's the guy I look at like when we're doing these MFL 10s and like the Scott Fish leagues, which are awesome. Scott Fish is so creative with some of these leagues he's put together. But when I look at those sophomore wide receivers, I think Brandon Cooks could very easily be the leading scorer out of the sophomore wide receivers. You got Evans, J-Matt, Cooks, kind of maybe throw A-Rob in there. That's pretty much about it that you're expecting a whole lot from out of the sophomores. Sammy's probably not your best redraft play this year. Who am I missing? I'm missing this Beckham character. I don't even count Beckham anymore. He's like ascended to a whole nother established. Yeah, he's on a whole nother level than these other guys right now. Wow, I completely forgot about him. But yeah, Cooks really easily we could be looking at 85 to 100 catches really easily this year. And
yeah, I think I put his line at like 95 catches, 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns, something like that. So I'm putting my my hot takes in stone. And let's move on to another guy, and that's Amir Abdullah, who's also got maybe just all of the hype to the point where it's absolutely ridiculous. I thought it was getting crazy when people were talking about taking over TJ Yeldon. And maybe that's just because I'm a TJ Yeldon guy, and I was getting to the point where I was ready to take him over Melvin Gordon. But now people are arguing Amir Abdullah at 103. I've heard people ask if they should take Amir Abdullah at 101. I like Amir Abdullah, but at 108, at 109, not at 103, 104, 105, that's just bonkers. There's no sense to it. He's got a lot of potential. I really like him as a pass catching back, and the offensive coordinator there he learned from Sean Payton. He's bringing a lot of that to Detroit. He's going to be able to get a lot of that of Amir Abdullah, but it doesn't change the fact that Amir Abdullah is not the caliber of player that Kevin White is, that Nelson Aguilar is, that TJ Yeldon is.
Yes. That's that. That's all I got. Let's just throw a little water on the Abdullah hype. Nice player. We do not hate Amir Abdullah. Not even in the least. But I see no reason for what has happened. Yeah, he's got a lot of buzz in training camp. All right. Awesome. That's great. He's a hell of a player. He ripped off some highlight reel runs the other night. Badass. That's not enough for me to vault him. That's it. I mean, it's such a small sample size. So small. And we saw in the tape what he could do. Go look at the Iowa tape. It is 4 quarters of Amir Abdullah highlights. He made them look like children. Hell of a player. But go look at some different tape, and you'll see that he does have some weaknesses. He's not Todd Gurley. He's not Amari Cooper. He's not Kevin White. Not Aguilar. I wouldn't take him over Yeldon or Melvin Gordon ever. Wouldn't do it right now. So, nice player, but just pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Tyler. By no means do either of us hate Amir Abdullah. This guy he's a really good player. And if I'm sitting at 108 and the top 7 players on my board are gone, I'm taking him at 108 because he's the 8th best player on my board. But I'm not taking him before then. And if Yeldon doesn't score as the number 1 fantasy running back this season in terms of rookies, I wouldn't be surprised if Amir Abdullah was the number 1 scoring fantasy running back as a rookie. But I don't think he's going to be the number 1 fantasy scoring running back in terms of career arc among the 2015 class. That's why I'm taking Yeldon. That's why I'm taking Gurley. That's even why I'm taking Melvin Gordon, even though I'm not happy about it. I like Melvin Gordon, but the lack of the passing upside still kind of irks me. Whereas Amir Abdullah's got all the passing upside, but he's got his own flaws that kind of make me hesitant. But let's take it down like 2 notches. 2 notches should be enough. And with that, we'll move on to our next guy who we're going to go ahead and light the fire under his hype because we're not consistent at all. And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Matt Jones apparently looked really good in the Washington game tonight. And the reason we're hyping him up is we're not what you would call Alfred Morris fans, but that's mostly because we like good running backs here. So, I mean, we're not terribly big fans of Matt Jones either, but I think we can both pretty firmly agree that we like Matt Jones better than Alfred Morris, especially in terms of as a pass catching back, which gives him more depth as a fantasy running back. You don't have to rely on touchdowns every week to give you a startable week, which is huge. I mean,
yeah. I mean, Alfred Morris is who he is. It takes him an entire game to get you 8 points. And if he doesn't trip into the end zone, you got a dud. That's who Alfred Morris is. He might, what does he catch? 6-8 balls a year? I don't even know. I know it's so insignificant that it barely even registers. So any kind of versatility at running back there is going to be better than Alfred Morris for me. Alf is, God, he's just boring. Yeah, he's been super consistent. He doesn't get hurt. He's got a floor. Put that in quotation marks. He has a floor. You know what you're going to get. But you know what you're not going to get either. You're never going to get 35 points from Alfred Morris. You're not going to get an Arian Foster week where he goes for 4 touchdowns and catches 8 balls for 90 yards. Never, ever, ever going to happen. I don't think Matt Jones can do that either. But if something happens and Matt Jones is the starter there, he's immediately more fantasy relevant than Alf. And that sounds super bizarre to say, and it kind of sounds weird to hear. But in the landscape in which we play, which is PPR football, gotta catch the damn ball. You just have to.
Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. And I'm not advocating Matt Jones as like some early 2nd-round pick, even if he starts to show more than he's already showing. But if you're taking him at the end of the 2nd round, I'm cool with that. I mean, granted, that's inflated value. That's about as high as I'm willing to take him, but I'm taking him in the 3rd round all day, every day at this point, unless I can get Stephon Diggs. But he's looking really, really good too.
You can't get Stephon Diggs because we've already taken Stephon Diggs. And I'm very leery of opportunity inflated running back price. We see it all the time. Bishop Sankey, Trent Richardson. That was a little bit of a different case, but the opportunity was right there in his lap, and the fact that he was the starter from day one definitely drove his price. Monty Ball. We could go on and on and on here. And Matt Jones has a little bit of that going for him. David Cobb has a little bit of that going for him. Buck Allen. Players that are just overall just a little bit meh. But I like Jones a little bit better because he can work in the passing game. Ooh, interesting stat. Did you know Buck Allen catch a lot of footballs? Like, caught a lot of footballs.
Yeah, it's essentially the only thing he was good at. Because if you watch him as an actual running back, he was god-awful. The passing game was the only game aspect where he was able to really contribute.
I wished I had watched more. I soured on him so fast. Him and David Cobb both. I watched about one game worth of them, and I'm just like, all right, moving on. I get the mez real quick on running backs, and those two dudes gave it to me.
Yeah, you and I didn't get to talk Buck Allen on the show. That was one that me and Scott did together, and I just took a huge dump all over Buck Allen. I'm like, this is terrible. I will not draft him. He is the worst. Like, Taliaferro looked terrible in the preseason game. I'd still take Taliaferro over Buck Allen.
I like Taliaferro. I don't even know why. I just do. He's got a cool name. His name is Lorenzo. That's fucking cool. Lorenzo.
I mean, they're pretty good at drafting cool names there in Baltimore. I mean, they got Crockett Gilmore. How do you not trust a guy named Crockett?
He's got to be a solid. Crockett's the kind of guy you go down to the creek and fish for catfish with on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been shooting a 22 since he was like 9. He's a good guy, though.
Old Crockett and Max with 2 X's. That's cool. That's a really cool name.
Yeah. But that Max is different. Max has been doing like prescription pills since he was like 15. Because his parents don't care and they don't watch him. This turned from the Dynasty Playbook into interesting social commentary hour. So with that, I guess we'll move into our last guy that's looking good. And Tyler, this is your boy, so I'll let you start us off.
Cody Latimer, man. Caught 4 out of 5 targets, and a few of them he went and snatched it. Cody Latimer can catch the damn ball. Cody Latimer can play football. His price is likely to – God, his price never really did anything other than just kind of stagnate. It didn't do anything because we didn't see – what did he catch, 4 balls last year? He didn't play for shit. I mean, we played obviously you got Demarius out there who is just an absolute animal. One of the best in the game. And then Manny Sanders, who I don't really care for, but was really good last year. So Latimer, let's not be surprised at all when Latimer shows up and is playing in 2 wide receiver sets. They're going to have to get the kid on the field. He's too damn good. He's big. He's explosive. He's got great hands. And he's a Bronco. So he's got that going for him too, which is great. So this is like our anti-hype train here when it's a guy that we like because we're not biased at all.
You see, that's the nice thing, though. At least we can recognize our biases and call ourselves out on it. Like, there's a lot of people in the industry that will totally just ride their biases into the ground. At least we tell y'all when we're like, yeah, we know we're kind of going overboard here. But you say that Latimer's value hasn't really increased. He cost like a mid-second last year, and somehow by the time this offseason started, he was worth like the 108. Even though he did nothing. So I don't know how that happened, but his value stayed about steady this whole offseason, even though he got hype. So I don't know what's up with that. But I'd say he's about worth the 108 based on what we saw from him.
Based on, with the context of this class that just came out, which is top heavy, I mean, super top heavy, and then it just kind of goes, So if Latimer were in this class, yeah, I'd be pretty comfortable ranking him somewhere in the Jalen Strong range for me.
Yeah, and I don't mean like he's worth the 108 in terms of draft picks. Like, I just base it on where he fits in terms of ADP, like where he's slotting in between rookies and stuff.
That's
which
about where you're
is
getting.
a completely unscientific way to do it, but it's the way I do it.
Science is
YOLO.
overrated. Oh, you said YOLO again. I thought we weren't going to do that anymore.
I do what I want.
That's true.
It's like a disease. I started saying it to make fun of other people, and now I can't stop myself. And with that, we'll move into our college player discussion. I think this is the longest we've made it into a show until we did our college player discussion. And let's go ahead and jump right in. And our player is Kenneth Dixon, who is a running back from Louisiana Tech. He is a true senior. He's 5'10", about 210. And Tyler and I actually disagree on a prospect for once. It's kind of weird, which means one of us is going to be wrong. I don't know what that's about. I don't think we're either of us allowed to be wrong, so I don't know about all that. But I actually like Kenneth Dixon. I think that his issues with running up the middle have a lot to do with a really poor interior offensive line. Because you watch that every time he runs up the middle, even before he's gotten a chance to get past his offensive line, he's already got two defenders on top of him. And if you watch him in the open field or even kind of in the second level of defense, it takes more than one defender to bring him down most of the time. So if he's only getting hit by one defensive player at the line, chances are he's going to be able to glance off of him and continue his run, pick up some more yardage. But this line is failing so abysmally that he's getting just dogpiled on. He's got no chance. So he tends to bounce it to the outside where he's more successful. He's able to show that he's more able to outrun and outjuke these defenders because he's got excellent footwork. He's got above average vision, and he's fairly strong. I mean, it doesn't show immediately, but he's pretty strong. He's able to push off some defenders. And I'm not picturing this guy as a first-round rookie pick or anything like that, but, you know, he could turn into a Matt Jones-level player where he could push for the starting role in kind of a rough offense, you know, where the established starter isn't that good. Like, say in New York, in the Jets. If Stephen Ridley ends up leaving because of the injury, and it's just Chris Ivory there, I could see him pushing Chris Ivory because Chris Ivory can't be involved in the passing game. I like Dixon. You know, I could see him being a third-round pick, and he's probably somebody that's going to end up on my roster.
Yeah, this kid's just meh for me. First off, I'm calling bullshit. The official site lists him at 212. I don't see it. I really don't see it. He kind of looks to me like the kid in like junior high football with the jersey that's 2 sizes too big. You know, he looks little, and he's got the bounces. And Drew makes a very valid point. The offensive line is not good. All right, and when he comes up the middle, they're all over him. The offense, and I'm looking at it from a defensive point of view, super easy to read. They're running all these counters. Read the backside guard, you know what's happening. The ball's gonna, you know what gap he's going to. You know what's happening. So he bounces, but he just didn't do anything for me. He had a few really nice runs where he makes a little wiggle at the line and then he breaks free, but he didn't get touched. You know, he's a nice pass catcher. He really is a nice receiver. He's a pretty good pass blocker. He knows where to go. He's smart. You can tell he's got some savvy, and I think a lot of that probably comes with being a senior or a junior last year from the tape we're watching. You know, he's seasoned, I guess. But these small school guys are so tough to evaluate because, first off, they play on a shitty team with a shitty offensive line, and they're playing against a shitty team with a shitty defensive line. So it's really hard to say who he is. I won't be surprised if this kid's an undrafted free agent next year. But if I had to call who I think he can be, I think he can be like 60, 70% of Danny Woodhead. That's kind of what he looks like to me as a COP on his best day.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we'll pretty much leave it at that because I just feel like even though we have dissenting opinions, I don't feel like I'm firmly rooted in what I saw, I mean, I like the guy, but I'm not planting my flag and willing to go to war over him. This is a guy I want to see against better competition, more than just ULL and Illinois and Marshall. It's just, and granted, you're probably not going to see it. Louisiana Tech does not play a bunch of good teams. They play in Conference USA. Actually, I think they're moving. No, Marshall's moving. LA Tech's staying. But I'm going to get to watch him this year again. And he's not going to play against better defenses probably. But at least I'll have more tape. I'll be able to see if maybe an improvement in the offensive line this year allows him to run up the middle more. Maybe this bouncing the outside thing is something they coach out of him. But maybe it's not. Maybe you're right. Maybe he's 60% of Danny Woodhead, and he doesn't make it through the preseason. If you're right, then yeah, I'll be the first to admit it. But I like him.
I mean, we are so early in this right here. There's a lot of ground to cover between now and the 2016 NFL draft. So we're just kind of getting a head start here on a few guys. He's a name that we've seen pop up in a few spots. So we wanted to take a look at him, and we're split. But for everything that I'm saying, Drew's like, yeah, I see that too. And everything that Drew sees that he likes, I see it too. So, I mean, the kid's a nice little football player, but it's not impossible to tell, but it's really tough to tell, especially with the small school guys. And like I said, there's a long ways to go now. And when the real talent evaluators start hitting these guys, that's when we're gonna find out. When the guys from the NFL, the scouts, start saying what they think, that's when it's time to get your ear to the ground and go back and look what they say. What does this guy do well? What does he do poorly? Go back, put that with your own film eval and see if you're in tune with what they're saying. If you are, awesome. If you aren't, that's cool too. Because at some point you got to be your own evaluator.
Yep. And I mean, the reason we're getting into so many of these guys early on is because there's a lot of players to eval. And if we want to, kind of break them down, even a decent portion of them for you guys, then we need to kind of start early. And as tape comes out, as we see more guys this season, if we see players developing that we've already touched on, sure, we'll come back and revisit them and, make sure you guys know that, hey, this isn't the same player we were watching a year ago, and he's developed further. But if you don't hear anything from us, assume that, our stance is kind of staying the same. And with that, we'll move on to our IDP spotlight for this week. And it's a guy that he's not really a big name, and he's probably not going to be a big name for a little while, and that's DeMontre Moore. He's a defensive end out of New York. And right now he's kind of just stuck in the middle. He's not bad enough to where he's going to get cut, but he's not good enough to be a full-time starter. And I think part of that has to do with New York and not has to do with him specifically. They use him as a rotational player, even though potentially he has the skill to be an every down player. Tyler has brought it up, and I mean, I'm going to make part of his point for him because I'm already the one talking. And he's going to be 24 when his contract's up. If he re-signs somewhere else, he has the opportunity to go be a four down back. He has the opportunity to see full snaps somewhere else as a defensive end. And that makes him more than capable of being a high-end DN2 or even a low-end DN1 if he sees the snaps. And, I mean, that's for what you could pay to get him now, that's pretty reasonable if you hold on to him.
I mean, we knew who DeMontre Moore was coming out. He's an athletic specimen that doesn't play the run very well. But when he got drafted, he's 19, 20 years old. That's the thing. This is the kicker. If DeMontre Moore was 20, even 25 years old, and had been in the league for 3 or 4 years, and this was his role as a rotational player, pass rushing specialist, whatever you want to call it, I'd say let's move on. It's not time to move on yet, because when his rookie contract expires, like Drew said, he's going to be 24 years old. There's a lot of room for improvement there. There's a lot of room for him to put on 20 pounds. Any number of things could happen. So he really, really good chance that he's not in New York in 2 years. And he's just so young. He's an athletic freak. He's got the draft pedigree. And he's a defensive end. We've talked about defensive ends. There aren't very many defensive ends. So when you have one that's this young and has this kind of potential, he needs to stay on your roster for a little while. You're not going to sell him. Tim was texting me yesterday like, hey, man, I had a guy inquire about DeMontre Moore. What would you sell him for? I'm like, shit, I don't know. Yeah, I'd sure as shit sell him, but it'd have to be an overpay. I don't know why I would sell him for, even a break-even move right now. So your deeper IDP rosters, keep him on your roster. Keep him there. Go buy him if you can. Pay a 5th-round rookie pick. I bet you could probably pick him up for a 5th-round rookie pick in a lot of spots. And just see what happens. We don't know what he's going to do this year. JPP isn't playing this year. I'll be shocked if JPP plays this year. He still hadn't even been examined by the team doctors. That's insane. We're getting deep in the preseason here in camp and everything, and he still's not even doing his thing. So somebody's got to do it. They got the rookie out there who's awesome. He's like a Greek god. Then you got Robert Ayers and just a whole collection of bleh going on. Some more could definitely see an uptick in snaps this year. And all he has to do is get to where he's playing the run better. And don't think he's not working on it. He's a professional athlete. I hope the hell he's working on it. Because he wants to get paid. That's how you get paid. You don't get paid year one. You get paid on that second contract. And if he flashes, the dude's going to get paid.
Yep. I mean, that's pretty much all there is to it. And I'm pretty sure New York has kind of made a habit of not paying guys when they kind of need to be paid. And that gives more credence to the idea that he could go somewhere else and play. And with that, we'll move on to our submitted question for the week. And it comes from Should Be Studying. He asks, how do you feel about Jalen Strong? Is he talented enough to break through and overtake Cecil Shorts this year on the depth chart? Or will he simply be a long-term play that would be better to pick up in later rounds of a draft? Well, Cecil Shorts, that's a name. I actually used to like Cecil Shorts, but actually I think Cecil Shorts might outplay Strong in terms of fantasy points this year, because I think Strong is going to start the season injured and it's going to stunt his development in terms of the offense. I think Nate Washington's going to see snaps over him to start the season. In terms of long-term play, though, I think Strong is by far the better option, and I'm still willing to spend an early second to make sure that I lock in that option, because I still think he could be one of the best wide receivers out of this draft class. It hasn't changed. I don't care what the NFL tells me with the fact that they took him with one of the top picks in the 3rd round. I still think he's a really solid NFL wide receiver, and I want my hands on him.
Yeah. The name Cecil Shorts it doesn't even register to me with all of this. I don't even care. Cecil Shorts, Nate Washington. I don't care about all that side noise in Houston. This is a rookie. All right, so we've become a little bit comfortable with what we think rookies can do because we had a few guys do okay last year.
The word you're looking for is spoiled.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're spoiled. So we're not expecting Jalen Strong to come out there and drop Mike Evans' numbers. All right. I mean, it's probably not going to happen. I mean, anything could. It's not going to happen. Jalen Strong is still, outside of the top couple guys in this class, the best at the catch point. Jalen Strong makes tough contested catches. He can do absolutely everything wrong and still make the play. And he does a lot of right, too. Still, 6'3", 220, 215, 220. He's got the size. incredibly productive in college. Jalen Strong profiles as a X or a Z receiver. He's an outside receiver. He's got that profile of a number one. You know, his ceiling is high, high, high. His floor is a little bit his floor is lower than what we want it to be. All right. We loved him a lot early in the process. And I've cooled on him some, but not that much. I still saw what I saw. You know, you're not taking that away from me. So Strong is definitely a guy you want to get on your roster, and he's actually presenting really, really nice value now. You know, ever since the NFL draft, his value is really sweet. And now you're going to see Funchess go ahead of him, and you're going to see Dorsett go ahead of him. You're going to see a lot of guys that I would take Jalen Strong over go ahead of Jalen Strong. So be cognizant of that if you're drafting a startup right now or a rookie draft. Don't overpay for him, but get him on your roster. Get him in your sights. I really think that he's going to do big things. I really, really do. But in the short term, I don't know. I really don't care.
The only wide receiver I'll say is definitively better at the catch point in this draft is Kevin White. Parker, Cooper, they might as well be on the same level as Jalen Strong. Parker might be better than Jalen Strong, but he's in the conversation right there with them. Kevin White's the only one that I could say pretty certainly is better than him at the catch point. Jalen Strong is excellent in terms of it. He has solid hands, and he's just – his body control is excellent. He's got those aspects of a really great possession receiver that you want to see. And, you know, his route running is really where he's suspect. If they can develop that, then he could end up being, you know, like Tyler said, he could be a great value. He could give you such a great return on investment. There's no reason not to invest in him now when he's cheap.
I mean, look at some guys that aren't super great route runners, aren't these great quick twitch, quick moving athletes that have been pretty damn good. Anquan Bolden, Marcus Colston has made a career out of eating people up over the middle. And Marcus Colston has never done anything flashy at all, but he has been Mr. Steady. And if you've had Marcus Colston on your roster the last 7-8 years, you've been pretty cool with it. And there were a few years of really good Marcus Colston. So am I expecting him to be Julio Jones? Nah, I'm really not. If I ever was, I'm not anymore. But do I think he can be a nice wide receiver too for your dynasty team for a long, long time? Absolutely. With the potential to be, you know, a top 10 or 12 wide receiver. It's there. But I don't think he's ever going to be Des Bryant dominant. But it's so hard. For every one Des Bryant, there are a lot of turds out there. A lot. You know how hard it is to get a Julio Jones and A.J. Green? Damn near impossible. So if you're expecting Julio Jones or A.J. Green, be prepared to get disappointed, because you're going to be disappointed more often than not. But Jalen Strong's such a nice player, man. He really is. And the QB situation in Houston isn't going to be that way forever. That will be rectified.
Yeah. For every Julio Jones, there's 10 Stephen Hills that, you know, you thought were going to be Julio, and then that just didn't happen. But I'm still keeping my neck out there for Strong. But I think we're going to call that with our submitted question for the week, and we're going to move on to my rant of the week. And I'm already pretty fired up. I had a long conversation on Twitter yesterday about pick time, and really the idea that, okay, you have an 8, a 12, a 24-hour clock in which to use your draft timer to do whatever you want. In dynasty drafts, you can trade, you know, there's options. There's reasons why you can hold up the clock. And we understand that. If you're trading, if you're negotiating a trade, it falls through, we totally understand that. But if you're logging in and you don't do anything, and you log in 10, 12 times, and you don't pick, and you're just holding the draft hostage, you're a jerk. If you're in an MFL 10 and you're just not picking, if you use 6 hours of the clock and there wasn't extenuating circumstances. There wasn't a reason why you took 6 hours to pick. You're a jerk. You're holding up the draft for everybody. You're ruining for everybody. And I don't understand this prevailing thought that you shouldn't care what other people's average pick time is. I entered these drafts because it's fun for me. Making picks is fun for me. And when they slow it down, it ruins it. It kills the pace of it. And by the time my pick comes around, hell, I've probably forgot the draft was going on. I've had it happen in MFL 10 to the point where I ended up auto-picking because I didn't even care I was in it anymore. It's the worst. Don't be the worst. Don't be a butthole. Make your pick when you're on the clock. If you don't have a reason not to make your pick as soon as you come on the clock, make your pick. Set up text message notifications when you get in a league. Have your phone notify you once you're on the clock. Make your pick. If you're not sleeping or in the doctor's office or at dinner, make your pick. If you just not paying attention, you don't care, and you sit on the clock for 4 hours, you shouldn't have entered the draft because you clearly don't care enough to pay attention. Don't make other people pay for the fact that you don't care. I hate you. Don't be that guy. Nobody likes that guy.
I mean, shit happens. Some people can't dick around with their phone at work. Some people may have, a date with their wife. It's all good. Nobody's going to get upset about that. But like Drew said, if you're not just tied up, it's rude. It is. It's just rude. And who in the world doesn't have a smartphone now? It literally takes seconds to go make a pick. Seconds. And I'm always amazed at these drafts, and God knows we've done enough of them, where you're waiting for hours and hours and hours, and then homeboy makes his pick, and then 7 picks. Wham, 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 wham. The next 7 guys that are like, man, I really want to pick. Boom, those picks are in within 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then we're back to home slice again. And then we wait for 4 hours. And then 5 picks come off the board real quick. And then next you know it's 10 o'clock at night and the draft shut down for the day. So, I mean, I get it. If you're taking time, if you're just taking time for taking time because, like, I don't really want to do that right now, kind of being a butthole. Period.
Pretty much. And yeah, like you said, if you can't fiddle with your phone at work, that's completely understandable. Don't get fired to make your draft pick. We get it. We're not completely heartless. We're mostly heartless, but not completely. Trying, be reasonable. If pretend it was a live draft. If you knew all these people, not that it was a live draft, but pretend it's a draft with everybody you know. You're not going to make people wait for 8 hours because all your friends are going to be sending you text messages with death threats because you deserve them. But because you don't know these people, you don't care, and that's rude. Just because you're anonymous on the internet doesn't mean you can just act like a jerk to people. Even though I act like a jerk to people on the internet, and that's fine.
Yeah, but you're a rock star. You said what needed to be said yesterday. Yeah, I guess we're kind of subtweeting here. Vocally subtweeting here. You said what needed to be said to an individual that needed it said to. Period. But yeah, I mean that just kind of hits on it, Just don't be rude. It's just don't. And on a side note, if you don't know the guys with whom you're playing, if you're playing a league with guys you don't know, don't start razzing them because the butt hurt meter will just go off the charts. Boy, don't give them a hard time because they'll get super butt hurt. Like with the Couch Coach crew, if you're on the clock for 4 seconds, you're getting lit up on Voxer, Twitter, text message. We're all over you, but it's fun. It's fun for us. We're giving each other a hard time because we're buddies. But if somebody says, hey, I'm going to be out of pocket for a few hours, you back off because we do understand. But yeah, don't razz the strangers. They don't like that shit.
Neither does Scott. Even though Scott's our buddy, he gets super defensive about it. But in all fairness,
Scott mad. I made him mad.
But Scott's also not in the East versus West chat with us, so he doesn't know it's the norm. He hasn't seen it done in public as much, so he just thinks we're targeting him. We're not targeting you, Scott. We all get it.
We're targeting everybody. With what does Brady say? With well-placed shame memes.
There's a lot of shame to go around.
Wow, we made some crazy ones too. It gets a little out of control behind the scenes of the Dynasty Playbook. We can be pretty cruel.
That should be the moral of the story. If you know the people you're in drafts with and they're taking a hard time, taking a long time, shame them. Shame them into picking sooner. They'll respect you for it. And with that, I think we're about ready to call it a night. Tyler, you got any last parting shots for us tonight?
No, I think we got it all pretty good. I'm afraid this might have been a little bit of a train wreck. I don't want to listen. We were babbling, bro.
Yeah, we definitely got off the rails tonight. But guys, keep an eye out. We're going to do another show this weekend with a special guest co-host. So I hope you all are looking forward to that. Guys, it's been the Dynasty Playbook, where we like to put out some of the fires and then start our own fires. And then we congratulate our own fires. I've been your host, Drew. You can find me on Twitter at DrewDotsonNFL. With me has been my co-host, Tyler. You can find him at HBomb, IDP. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week.